Got a question? Ask Tom on Home Show Radio.
This is Home Show Radio live on Facebook and YouTube. Your questions, Tom's answers. Now here's Tom Tynan and Charlie Mosier.
And we start by telling you that I'm on the radio here in Houston. I've been doing this for 35 years, answering your questions, and I do it live on the radio. But today, I do it live here. It's called Ask Tom Live. So we've expanded from just the voice to the picture of me.
Ooh.
Okay. Now that... everybody's
Where am I...
Okay, wait, forget that.
Where are my sound effects when I need them?
Yeah, I don't know. But don't use them. I take it back, I promise. I just got canceled by 2 people. Anyway, I want you to join us if you have home improvement questions. If you're interested in home improvements, we're going to be answering questions from our website, homeshowradio.com. I do answer questions on the weekend, Saturday from 9 to 12, and Sunday from 8 to 11 on Sports Radio 610 in the Houston area. But you can listen if you'd like to, or you can podcast it, whatever. It's a podcast. I'm not sure what it is. But Charlie, who's going to come up here in a second, will help me with that. But you can listen to it live by going to homeshowradio.com. And let me quickly get Danny up. Also, before me on Saturday, we have our guru of gardening, and it's Danny Milliken. And he's on from 7 to 9. I go on at 9 o'clock on Saturdays on Sports Radio 610.
Wow. So comprehensive it was that introduction. I'm
not really
impressed. No, but we do podcast. We have several podcasts, in fact, and in fact, I was talking to the Brain Trust this week, and we're thinking about putting this one, the audio of this, up as a podcast as well. So,
you know, I have a YouTube channel, I have a Facebook Live channel, I have a podcast. I don't know what any of them are.
Right.
I just was told they sit me here. There's 2 guys with shotguns telling me I can't move. And I just do this, and then they take me away and put me back in my cage.
Right. We put him back in stasis for the week, and then we bring him back out.
Stasis,
that's how he stays looking young so long. So, no,
yeah,
actually,
it's like going to oxygen. Yeah, oxygen's chamber.
No. But seriously, we're going to get you a TikTok channel next, and you can start doing the dancing thing and all that. Dancing home improvements. That's our deal. Yeah, or maybe better if we did news of home improvement. Yes, around the world and up your block with all the home improvement news you could ever want. This week's feature, Tom, is something near and dear to everybody's heart, and that is lumber prices, and they are falling fast, according to Wall Street Journal. Yeah, yep. What goes up must come down, and it is coming down, though they're saying that the futures for July are down 41%, and that means that they're selling for about $1,000 a board foot, which is a decline, and the price has gone down 14 of the past 16 days.
Yeah, but $1,000 back to where it was before, we're going to have to wait a few more days.
Well, in fact, funny you should say that, because the price for cash lumber is also dropping, what they call the on-the-spot market, where people come in and they buy it quick. That's dropped $122 as well in the last few weeks, and the index rose 120. To give you an idea, back in May, the index rose $124 in the first week of May. So it's gone up and it's come down, but can it keep going? Now this will give you a real good idea what we're talking about as far as the spike. You can see that if you go back to May, how that thing spiked up and it's come down, but it's not going to necessarily come down enough to work for us, because what's happened now is the tables have turned. What I read in the Wall Street Journal is that the builders had gone out and started hoarding the lumber and running up the prices. And then the price started dropping. So now, and they did it to avoid running out of materials. I mean, that's the fact. I mean, the sooner they buy their materials, like we're having some remodeling done at our house, and thankfully they'd already bought the lumber. So we were insulated from this. But now that they've bought it and the prices are dropping, they're now going to be sitting on lumber that is worth, that they can't sell. So now what they're trying to do is they've created what's called shadow inventory that's out there that isn't showing up in any of these index numbers as the builders sell off their stockpiles. So what they expect to happen, what the forecast calls for, as far as, obviously the price is being held up by builders struggling to meet the demand. Freddie Mac, according to Freddie Mac, we're up. There are about 3.8 million houses shy of what the market is demanding. And so lumber, Weyerhaeuser is saying that lumber could float at about $1,000 as a new normal, but most producers are saying it's most likely going to land about $700 or $800. What that means is before the pandemic, lumber was selling for $639. So is that a jump, or is it really more of a marching forward in a historical pattern? And that's what they're saying about lumber prices, that it took a spike, it came down, it's not going to quite land where it was, and we're going to be at about that $700 to $800 price point. So what's that going to mean to a home, Tom?
Well, first off, I think people are too fixated on the lumber because, first off, my thought is, how many guys playing the commodity markets got rich off this thing? And how many lost their shirt? I don't know. I don't play the market.
A whole bunch.
But I watch Trading Places with Eddie Murphy, and I know that you can make a lot of money in commodities and orange juice.
Right. I'll bet you $1.
And lumber, yeah, whatever the case is on that. But it's more than just lumber. It's the price of everything. I went to Lowe's to get some stuff for my electrical program, and I finally am finding cases of just the plastic boxes. They're about double the price. Not a big deal, 40, 50 cents more a box. I saw the wire still way up in price. So it's more than just lumber. I think lumber is going to be the least of the worries when it's all said and done. It's availability of a lot of other things that make construction materials like resins and glues and all these other issues that we're having that'll keep the market going slow as far as building. But I think lumber saw its high day and it came down, and it's going to be a little more expensive. But isn't gas more expensive? Isn't milk more expensive? Everything's percentage points higher. So I think that's pretty true for what would have happened anyway, whether we had that up and down or not.
I would say,
yeah.
I call a little. I take exception to that because we've seen wholesale prices jump the highest they've ever jumped in the last month in recorded history. So does that mean inflation is coming when you see the Fed starting to talk about bumping up interest rates to put the brakes on inflation? Yeah, I think that everything connects. It's all connected. And yeah, is lumber an accelerant to this, or a flashpoint that's driving this? Who knows? We'll see. I don't know if it's a
flashpoint. I think people are more fixated because lumber was never the big cost on a house. Mm-hmm. Other things like granite and cabinets and all this. Well, cabinets have lumber, but all these other things were. And I think that's going to be the least of our worries for higher prices for building. I think the building prices will still stay higher than they were before, but it'll not be because of lumber. I think it's going to be because of a lot of other things like roofing materials and things of this nature, especially oil related.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing, is how much of it's oil related. All right, next week on the news segment, we're going to talk about some interesting factoids about resale values of houses and where they're up and what's down and all that. So that'll be next week on What's News. I got to get my money out of this music, okay?
I can tell.
I spent $15 on that song. I'm going to make sure
we already
it.
spent 50. We already made 50 cents back already. Seems like lumber all the time. Okay.
Nailed it. All right. You got a question? Go ahead. And, by the way, you remember that last week, that picture we put up on the Facebook page of the guy who poured the concrete around his condenser?
I do.
Yeah. We got hang on. Let me find this here. John in Bear Creek wrote to us. He says, concrete wisdom. He learned this. A carpenter once told me, it's not a mistake until it's poured.
That's true.
So
it's
that's
very unforgiving. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. If you're wondering what we're talking about, if you go to our Facebook page and scroll, you have to scroll up a little bit to find it. But there's a picture of someone who didn't want to wait to move his condenser to pour a concrete deck, and frankly, he's going to have to anyway, because when you look at that deck, I don't think you'd be happy with it. So.
Well, and the fact is, when people look at that picture, if any of you do, don't just look at the condenser, because that's kind of a mess. But that actually could be ground and straightened out pretty easily with a hand grinder. It's the whole finish of the whole pour
Yeah.
which shows you that it was never going to be right, whether they move the condenser or not. I think this was a disaster waiting to happen, whether it was there or not. It's
I don't
not
think
the
it's waiting.
condenser's fault.
Yeah, I don't think it's waiting. I think it's a disaster
done
at full
now.
steam. You bet.
Yep.
All right. So what we want to do is, if you have questions, go ahead and send them to us. Go put them in the comments section down there, and we'll be happy to put them up, and Tom can answer them to help you out today. In the meantime, we got some questions here from our Ask Tom section, homeshowradio.com. If you go there, there's a button, Ask Tom. You put them in there, and it can come out in one of these and the videos we place every day over there at homeshowradio.com. First question comes from Georgia in Willowbrook. She says, my air conditioner is not cooling. I want to know, should I cut it off until the repair person comes out or just leave it running? What say you, Tom?
Well, first off, if it's not cooling, there's no reason to run it anyway. So that would be my first just common sense thought process is open windows, get fans moving, do what you have to do to survive, because obviously it's not cooling. The second thing is equipment-wise, yes, it's like when you see the check engine light come on in your car and it starts blinking, that means stop. That doesn't mean wait till tomorrow and take it to the mechanic. If it comes on yellow, fine. If it starts red blinking, you're in big trouble. There's a time when you should just shut it off because it'll do more harm than good. So you're not getting any use out of it now anyway. It's just making noise and running some air through the ducts. You can do that with ceiling fans or another fan. And don't hurt the equipment anymore. But the most important thing is, hopefully you called today and they're out this afternoon or tomorrow, whoever you called. I would say Absolute Comfort Air if it's in the Houston area. I think this,
Jim Willowbrook, they
question
serve
was.
your area.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So call them and get them out there. Don't put it off, because within 6-7 hours you can have something that's working and you can be comfortable.
There you go. And now, is this a case, Tom, where this is a time when you'd put it to fan and let the fan run to at least keep air circulating around the house? I know it's going to get warm, but at least it's going to be air moving.
Okay, my comment to that is I don't think it's going to make you feel any better. If it keeps air moving, I'd rather see ceiling fans on and something that's going to really move the air, not just push some air through the little register. I don't think your body's going to feel that. Remember, your body cools with evaporative cooling, which means air over the skin. That's not going to move it much. Plus, you're moving air. If it's in the attic, you're moving air through a hot attic, so it actually could maybe heat the house up more. I don't know, but I will say this. If you did leave it on and it did make you feel more comfortable, Charlie, it's not going to hurt the unit. You can certainly leave the fan on.
Okay, that's good to know. Mike has our next question here from the Energy Corridor, which is kind of where I'm sitting here in that west side of Houston. Says, I'm thinking about converting my traditional pool to a saltwater pool. Do you have any recommendations on this or who to use, Tom? I know that U.S. Pool Builder will build them one, but I don't know they convert them.
They don't do repair work or work like that. First off, I'd like to say I have a salt pool. I think it's the only way to go. If you talk to Colt, the owner of U.S. Pool Builder, he loves doing salt pools for his clients too. There are companies out there that will convert your pool. They are usually pool remodelers and people in the pool equipment business. Some of the big chains in town. I use one called Texan that takes care of my pool. They do a great job. And that could be at one of the companies you could call to get an estimate on what it would take. There's some other chains you'll see in town that have stores all over. They do lots of repair work and lots of retrofitting of equipment. So that's what they're in the business to do. So it's not hard to find someone, but it's hard to find companies who are building pools that do that kind of work. You have to go to someone that's in the chemical business, maintenance business, cleaning business, and there's a bunch of companies out there. You might even ask if you have a friend that has a pool, or if you have a guy taking care of your pool, if he has someone that they know or you know that does this kind of retrofitting of equipment.
How much retrofit is there to it? I mean, do you still have
It's
a
not-
DE filter on a salt pool? Do you have?
You still have a filter. This does not take
Right.
place of the filter. That's a great
All right.
question. I have a cartridge filter. You can have a DE filter. Whatever the filter is, you still have to have a filter. That doesn't
Yeah,
get
okay.
replaced. What it does is you use less chlorine. You use some, and a pool is balanced differently, so you don't have all that chlorine in your pool. So your pool is maintained chemistry-wise through a combination of salt, which turns it into a chlorine through this process, and they can explain it to you when you look at the equipment. When it gets into chemical engineering, I step back because the words are too big and too long. But as far as that goes, little chlorine, more salt, acid's different, basic water chemistry is different, but it's so much better on your skin. I always relate it to soft water in your home because you do have a little salt residue in there, and it does do a different type of conditioning of the water, and so does the salt pool. So when you get out, you're not running to the shower, your skin's not all dried up, it's not all cracked, your eyes don't turn all red from opening them up under the water. It's very comfortable.
If I was going to get a pool, it would be a saltwater pool.
Ooh, that's the first time I ever heard you say anything about getting a pool even close.
If I was going to get a pool.
if
If I fell down the stairs and I hit my head and I got up and I said I need a pool.
Yes.
Yeah. I should explain. I had a bad experience with the pool.
Yes.
And it gave me a jaundiced view of them ever since. And my wife had almost a maintenance-free experience with the pool. So we have a very different way of looking at pools. But
Yes.
I would rather travel and swim in the ocean.
But I can tell you this, if you want a pool, call U.S. Pool Builders. Colt will give you one that will be on the wife's side, not the Charlie side.
Well, and he'll come out and he'll brainstorm with you, give you all kinds of ideas, and his whole process is really good. If you're looking for any kind of pro, you can go to homeshowradio.com right there. Scroll up, you'll find all our Home Show pros on the website, on the homepage. These are people we've checked out. If you're not sure who, but you know what, come here and you can search by category too. We've organized them that way for you too. The key thing to know about a Home Show Pro is that there's somebody who meets all of Tom's standards and what Tom thinks are important. And someone named Sandy Mojer just wrote in and said, I heard Charlie say pool. No. I said I don't want to be anybody's fool.
If I was ever going to build a pool, so Sandy, it's going to be a salt pool. So put that check box, salt pool.
Our next question
Yes.
comes from Tom in Kima. He says, my house is on piers down here, and there's a low spot on the concrete slab underneath that holds water after a hard rain. Is this a hard fix, Tom?
You really can't do much about it unless you poured 3 inches of concrete on top of it and crowned it so it wouldn't do that. I don't know of a house down near the coast, whether it's Galveston, Kima, wherever it might be, on stilts, that doesn't have a low spot on that concrete poured, and it has a little bit of residual that will sit there a little while. If you want to, like I always did with my house, take a push broom and push it off the side, it'll dry up pretty quick down there. But to fix it and try to fill it, the only thing I could tell you to do that would be expensive, but you might have a very expensive home that is worthy of this, my house wasn't, is put down one of those commercial coatings under the house so you have a nice walking surface, you have different color choices, and they can fill those low spots and then put the coating on top. That would be one way to handle it if your house justified the cost or if you just wanted to have it and had a little extra money in your pocket.
So you'd use it almost like a leveling compound to kind of
They'll level it first,
right,
and then they'll put the coating on top. But if you just put some leveling compound there, you're going to see these nasty patches all over the place. And if you drive a car on it, it's not going to work right. It's just not a good thing.
Is that slab under there part? I mean, if the house is up on stilts, is that still considered part of the structure, or could you get who's the concrete guy that raises them? Our guy.
No, Concrete Raising Corporation.
That's the one. Concrete Raising Corporation. They couldn't fix that.
The reason is it's one piece.
Oh,
and they
okay.
can raise different pieces back and forth. You know how you have the expansion joints and the sidewalk cuts and stuff like that. But when it comes to making a piece of concrete that's like this, push it up like that, that's not something that would be in their realm. Now, they could take the whole backside maybe and pick it up. They can't really with the stilts going through it. And then tilt it one way to the front. But that wouldn't be an option for something like that, because what happens is you build the house, you have the things in the ground, then you pour the concrete pad all the way around it. So if you tried to move it, it's around those concrete posts and those square posts, and it would start jacking everything around and cracking it up. It's not something I think they would touch at all.
It's not real flexible. It's why they call it concrete.
No, it's pretty much in there. But I would tell people this, and they ignore that at the end because they're so ready to get in. And that's a really important part, to make sure it's all sloped right. That goes back to that pour around that condenser. The finishers are really important. One experienced finisher, 2 helpers for every 1,000 square feet of concrete pour. Just remember that.
The largest convention in Orlando every year is Concrete World. It is they I think they go back between Orlando and Vegas, but I know in Orlando we were there for the International Builders Show a couple of years back, and which is you would think is a big show, and they go, no, Concrete World is much bigger. He says
Really?
Concrete World, when it comes into Orlando, takes over the entire. There is no other convention space available in Orlando, and you think how much convention space there is in Orlando.
Yes.
So, and it is, and concrete, we've talked about it before, is such a fascinating thing about how the chemical reaction and how it's continually curing, and it's a fascinating thing. We could natter on for hours, but my wife would say, you talk too long about concrete today, Charlie. Next question comes from Linda in Spring Branch. She says, are whole home surge protectors worth the price? Her home was built back in 2015. Tom, what say you?
Well, the question, is it worth the price? It is what it is. If you want it, you're going to pay for it. So it would be worth it to some, not to others. I wouldn't have one on my house. I don't see a need for it. Some people might find a need for it. Sometimes now when the codes where you're building, they might even require it. In commercial buildings, it's been around for a long time as that extra protection on all the big equipment and expensive equipment that they might have, especially in manufacturing and stuff. So I can't say if it's worth the price, but if you need it, it's certainly available, and it's getting more common. And I think eventually you'll see it probably on everybody's home. I don't know if I'd retrofit mine with it, but in fact, I know I wouldn't, because I never had a need for it. It just doesn't make sense to me. I've lived all these years and never needed one. What's going to make me need it now? That's the way I look at it.
Well, I had no choice. When they put those two
That's
panels,
what I mean. Yeah.
they put the 2 new panels on the house, I had to get them because that's part of the deal now.
Well, and that's right. And it depends. Are you in a place where they require it or not? Most places with the electrical NEC, the National Electric Code, if it's written in that code and you're working with an electrician, they're going to follow the code, period. That's how they keep their license.
Especially if it's right touch and they do everything right. There's a reason right is the first word in their name. Because there are no corners cut when right touch comes out. No.
But I'll tell you this, though, Charlie, real quick. And in plumbing, too, there's a lot of things they're made to do that a lot of electricians and a lot of plumbers and maybe HVAC techs, whoever is ruled by these conglomerates, they don't really agree with. They're going to do it because they have to do it, and it's not going to hurt anybody. But is there really a need for some of this stuff? Behind the scenes, when I'm talking with a lot of these guys, they understand that. I know, Tom, we have to do it, but I don't really see the need for it.
Yeah.
But it's a way to sell product too. So you have both sides of the fence playing each other on it. But a good electrician is going to follow the rules, and that's the only way he should do it.
I will tell you
That's
that
right, touch electrical.
Before I got a surge suppressor, I'd rather have a power conditioner, because a power conditioner will do more to protect your equipment. You know, if you go and see like a big time concert show or something where, I mean, a big enough concert where they're running generators outside. Like if you see like the Today Show or something, set up broadcasting remote, you'll always have generators outside running. They don't trust shore power. They want their own electric running. There's always a power conditioner there that makes sure that that sine wave is staying exactly where it's supposed to be when it's running, when that power is coming through, because that'll do more damage than anything else to your equipment. You know, when power varies slightly, it's not the spike as much as that break in the wave that'll screw up all the electronics and especially if something's running on a computer circuit or something. So that'd be my advice if you're going to put money into something, so, for what that's worth. But I'm not Tom Tynan.
I'm not an electronics person either, and we have questions about electronics all the time. We have to refer to Will. And I think we have one coming up here today about some stuff. So this is kind of leading into that.
Yeah, in fact, we do. When we get done doing this live with y'all, Tom and I hang around because he likes to answer questions for everybody. We have like 7 questions because we post a new one of these videos every day. We're going to tape them in just a minute, put them up, and we put them up one a day, about somebody who has this really weird problem with his electric where his cable modem and his satellite dish keep rebooting about every 5 minutes. Something's causing that to happen. And we're going to talk about it in one of those daily AskTom videos. And in fact, I talked to Will about that problem, and he's interested in talking to the guy and going out. And if he is right about what he suspects it is, we're going to do a video about it, because I'm here to tell you, I had that same problem for a while at my house. And,
and we won't talk about it much here, but there's a lot of ways to get around it. But I suspected the same thing Will did with what's called an open neutral. But that's for another time.
Well,
but
now, way to ruin
you won't see it with you.
I was teasing it so people would go watch it. Now you've told them how
I know, but they don't know what that is. Open neutral, nobody knows what that is. But it'll be something that won't affect the lights, won't affect normal stuff. But electronics, and Charlie, you know this with your studio and everything. Electronics are incredibly sensitive, some of them, and they can't handle what a normal light bulb can handle.
The only thing more sensitive than the electronics around here are the people who run them. So
yeah, they can be a little testy, yes.
Got one more question for you from Alfred in Rosenberg. He says, I have a house above the land I spray, above the land, and I spray foamed under the house. It was closed cell foam, and it's open under the house. Did I do the wrong thing? Because I did it because the floors were cold. I think you're getting his meaning here. He's just wondering, did he make a mistake doing that, Tom?
Only time will tell. Some homes will react different than others. It depends how high the ground is. All these little details will make a lot of difference. I hope he didn't. I wouldn't lose any sleep over it. I'd forget about it now. Right now, this time of year in Houston, I think people would appreciate a cold floor, so that would always be an advantage because it's so hot out. But in the wintertime, it can be uncomfortable, and we're always going to be uncomfortable in Houston when we get really cold weather. And the fact of the matter is we hate winter. So people are incredibly sensitive to cold weather, and we're up north, it wouldn't even mean a thing to people. I don't think he's going to have a huge problem. My biggest concern with something like that is you have a lot of ventilation under the home so it stays dry. But most importantly, if you have wood floors in your home and you put it up under traditional wood floors, not engineered you'd probably get away with okay, but the traditional wood floors, you could have cupping problems and some weird problems with it, but only time will tell. I'm not going to tell you, oh, it's a disaster waiting for it to happen, because nobody will know till it does. I wouldn't have done it that way, but I like to see things breathe. This is closed cell, so the rule is if you don't want it to breathe at all, use the closed cell. So maybe that will help even more than if you used open cell and it trapped all that moisture in there.
Time will tell.
Yeah, it's all. Don't lose sleep. Just go with it.
So we are going to land the plane here, but next week. Just want you to know, next week is, I believe, it's the last. Isn't it next week the last Thursday of the month? I think.
Yeah, for Thursday.
Yeah, it's
well,
the last.
No, the next Thursday is. Yeah, it's 29/30. It's the 1st of July.
No, next week is the 23rd and then the 30th. Okay, so we're still a week out. Okay. I'm like,
okay,
I had
I can't keep with dates.
Show
I don't even know
prep.
what day it is.
No, I know. It's like, yeah. Business has been so crazy.
I was on an airplane last night. I don't even know where I am.
I was telling my stepson yesterday, business has been so off the hook since the beginning of the year around here. I haven't slept in my own bed 5 nights in a row since May. So it's been kind of crazy. But anyway, the long and short of it is that in 2 weeks, we'll have Danny Milliken here with us to answer questions. So next week, it'll just be Tom and me again, and then Danny will join us. He's here the last Thursday, right?
Thursday.
No, wait a minute. Hold on. Oh, yeah.
That's
next
the first.
Next week is the last Thursday. So he will be here next week. I'm thinking it's Wednesday.
Yeah, it has to be because the first is a Thursday. The 1st of July
Yes,
is
it
Thursday.
is. That's right. So next Thursday, like I was saying, next Thursday, Danny will be here. I'm glad
That's
we
what
can
happens when you sleep around, Charlie.
Yeah, sleep around. Yeah, that's right. In Tulsa and Richmond and Colorado. But Danny will be here next Thursday. So the point is that if you want to get some input from the Home Show Garden Pro ringleader, the guy who keeps these people together, get us your questions this week, and Danny will answer them next week on this very same program, along with Tom, who answers questions all weekend for you.
Yes, I do. I'm just swallowing my water here. Felt like Marco Rubio for a minute. Anyway, I'm on Saturdays from 9 to 12 and Sundays 8 to 11 on Sports Radio 610 and at homeshowradio.com.
And you are welcome to send us your questions anytime you want. Just click on that Ask Tom button right there. Fill out this form, send it in. We'll answer them. We'll answer them here on this show, or we'll answer them in our daily Ask Tom videos that we do. We post a new one every day. We're going to fixing to go record 7 of them right now as soon as we're done talking to you. So, and that is it for this week. We'll see you next week. We hope you have a blessed week. And catch Tom this weekend on Sports Radio 610.
Got a question? Ask Tom on Home Show Radio. Home Show Radio. Free advice from a pro who